At the heart of every story worth telling lies a moment of injustice, a moment when the world looks down on someone who deserves nothing but respect. That's exactly where this story begins. Imagine this. A proud father, a decorated veteran, who's given everything he had for his country, standing at the back of a high school auditorium. His hands were rough from years of work, his jacket worn but neat, his chest rising with pride as he watched his only son take the stage. This was supposed to be the greatest day of his son's young life, graduation. But just before the names were called, two security guards walked up to him and whispered words that cut deeper than any battlefield wound. Sir, we're going to have to ask you to leave. The veteran's name was Daniel Hayes, a single dad who had raised his son, Chris, since the boy was 6 years old. Life hadn't been easy. Long shifts at the factory, bills that always seemed higher than his paychecks, nights spent patching up cars just to scrape together a few extra dollars. But he never complained. Every sacrifice was for Chris. And today, standing in that crowded gymnasium, he thought it was finally all worth it. Except now, two strangers were telling him he didn't belong. Daniel's heart sank as the guards explained that someone had complained about him taking reserved seating. Daniel hadn't even known. He just found an open chair to sit in, holding onto the program like it was gold. He tried to explain that he was there for his son, that he wasn't trying to cause trouble. But rules, the guards said, were rules. Parents whispered. Some looked away. Others frowned at him. For a moment, Daniel thought about fighting back with words, but something in his chest gave way. He didn't want to ruin Chris's moment. So, slowly, painfully, he rose from his chair and headed for the exit. But Chris saw. Standing in line, cap and gown neatly pressed, his eyes darted to the back of the room. His father, his hero, was being escorted out like he was a criminal. The boy's throat tightened. How could the man who taught him about honor, about grit, about never giving up, be treated like this? His classmates whispered, some smirking, others confused. Chris wanted to run after him, but before he could move, the unexpected happened. The auditorium doors swung open with a quiet, deliberate force. 6 men in uniform walked in, their presence commanding instant respect. They weren't in dress blues or parade attire. These men carried themselves with the unshakable bearing of warriors. Navy SEALs. Former brothers in arms of Daniel Hayes. Without a word, they marched past the guards, who froze in their tracks. One of the SEALs, a tall, broad-shouldered man with eyes sharp as steel, stopped directly in front of Daniel. He saluted. We stand with you, brother. The room fell silent. Parents gasped. Teachers whispered. Even the principal shifted nervously on stage. The guards suddenly looked very small. Chris's chest swelled with pride as he saw his dad surrounded by men who clearly respected him in a way the crowd never could. These weren't just guests. These were men who had fought beside his father in places no one in that auditorium could imagine. The lead SEAL turned to the guards. This man doesn't leave. He stays. He's earned that right more than anyone here. His voice carried through the room like a command no one dared disobey. Slowly, Daniel was guided back to his seat. Not by the guards, but by the SEALs themselves, who stood behind him like an unbreakable wall. For the first time in years, Daniel didn't feel small, didn't feel overlooked. He felt seen. When Chris's name was called, he walked across the stage, but instead of just taking his diploma, he stopped. Turning to the audience, his voice shook but carried strength. I want everyone to know something. That man right there, my dad, is the reason I'm standing here today. He's not just my father. He's my hero. He raised me alone. He gave everything for me. And no matter what anyone thinks, I'd rather have him here than anyone else. Applause broke out. Not polite claps, but thunderous applause that grew and grew, echoing through the hall until everyone was on their feet. Parents wiped tears. Teachers nodded with newfound respect. Even the guards, now ashamed, lowered their heads. The SEALs stood firm, proud smiles on their faces, while Daniel fought back tears that refused to be contained. For once, his son wasn't just proud of him in private. The whole world knew. The ceremony finished, but the story didn't end there. Outside, as Chris hugged his father tightly, one of the SEALs placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. You think you're forgotten, brother, but you're not. We always remember our own. In that moment, Daniel realized something he hadn't allowed himself to believe for years: he wasn't alone. The sacrifices, the pain, the quiet nights of doubt, they mattered. They had always mattered. And as the sun set over that high school, a single dad veteran stood taller than he ever had. Not because he was saved by SEALs, but because he finally understood that his worth didn't need anyone's approval. It was written in the respect of his brothers, the love of his son, and the life he had built against all odds. So if you're watching this right now, take this story as a reminder. Respect the sacrifices made by those around you. Stand up for the people who stood up for you when nobody else would. And never, ever underestimate the power of love, loyalty, and honor.